Chapter 2 is on polynomials, and before we jump into section 2.1, we're going to review polynomials a little bit. I'm going to call what we're doing right now section 2.0. When you factor polynomials, it is helpful to have a process in place to be able to go through and do that. We have a lot of different factoring methods that we have covered over previous courses, and we need to apply those to our polynomials in section 2.0 so we can do the factoring. To do the factoring then, I want to give you some steps that we can follow in order for us to diagnose which factoring method we should use. Step number 1. When you go through and you are factoring polynomials, you should factor out whatever the common factor is first. So factor out your common factor. Take a look at all the terms. If there's anything in common, numerically or with a variable, you should factor that in front. Other than the number 1, that's a trivial case, so we would factor that in front. But any other common factors, we would factor that in front. Step number 2, we are going to count the number of terms and use that to diagnose which factoring method to use even further. When you count the number of terms, we're going to be looking at 2-term, 3-term, or 4-term polynomials. We have factoring methods for all of those. If you take a look at what the original was, or if you look at what's in the parentheses after factoring out the common factor, and there are 2 terms, there are 3 different methods that we are going to use. One of them is called the difference of squares, or the difference of 2 perfect squares. One of them is called the sum of cubes, or again, the sum of 2 perfect cubes is what some books say. And then the last method is the difference of cubes, or the difference of 2 perfect cubes. So if you have a 2-term polynomial, then you're going to want to use one of those 3 methods to finish your factoring. If you have 3 terms, there is one method that we typically use, and it doesn't have a standard universal name like these other 3 do, but a lot of times it's referred to as the add multiply method. And finally, if we have a 4-term polynomial, the method that we're going to be using is called factoring by grouping. So as you go through and you're practicing your factoring, use this kind of as a flow chart or an outline to go through and determine which factoring methods to use.